This is Constant Elevation, the show for rising Air Force and community leaders who seek to define the future. Learn powerful work and life tactics to tackle any challenge. I'm your host, Gabriel Gabrock Avila. Let's go.
What's up, everybody? Gabrock back here on the mic once again in June. We're actually more than halfway done with 2021. It's kind of weird to think about it like that, but that actually mathematically is true. So a lot of stuff going to happen on this show. A lot of things are just kind of leaning towards. If you read or if you read or listened to the intro to this episode, that's gonna be my last episode of this season. This is actually I consider this season 3 of Constant Elevation. Season 1 was actually when it used to be called Breaking Red Podcast. Season 2 is when I rebranded it to Constant Elevation, and then season 3 is where I did some of the aesthetics were changing, and then redid some stuff on the website, and also is when I launched my book on that season as well. So now I find myself at a crossroads. A lot of cool things that are happening in my life, and I just want to share that stuff with you, kind of my mindset. Today was the very last day of JCWS. Tomorrow we have a virtual graduation. The only thing that's required for us is we have to go online. An actual General Retired Robinson, General Lloyd Robinson, former PACAF commander, former Northcom commander. She's going to be our commencement speaker. So that's actually kind of cool. I worked for her for a little bit. So I'm actually looking forward to that speech. So I got a couple notes. You're going to see, if you're watching the YouTube video, you're going to see I'm looking down at my notes just because there's some stuff I want to make sure I got correct. So, but before I get into the, actually no, we'll talk about that. Reflections after JPME II. So I think in, we as a class, we talked about exactly like some of the things that now that we're done with the class, and my thoughts today was, could I have, if I had this prior to going to my assignment, I would have had a greater appreciation. I know the timing can't always work for that. And so I hit this one, whatever it is, like more than halfway done through my assignment here at JPME II, but it is going to give me a better appreciation. I did take some of my experiences, lessons learned coming in from a joint environment for about 2 years. We talked about it in class. Lots of us have different, combatant command and operation headquarters experience. And so it was good to hear everybody else's experience, that I'm not alone with some of the frustrations. And so talking and sharing those war stories was important. I do think when I go back to work, I'll have a better appreciation for, the processes and the rest of the J staff and what we can do as a team. So it's just my job to make sure I can keep on elevating the organization to be a much better. Looking forward to seeing how the organization has already changed underneath the Lieutenant General Skinner's guidance as well. Also kind of expanding the aspect of not every problem for the United States has a military solution, and arguably should not have a military solution. When you talk about the instruments of power, military should be maybe in some cases a lowercase m, and the other, domestic information and economic instruments of power arguably should be the larger things that the government uses, but the military are potentially is going to be the fastest one, and so that's not always the best answer. So we had a lot of good critical thinking exercises for that. Also think, speaking of going into higher levels of organizational, even command or just experiences, like I'm going to have to start expanding some of my thought processes and looking at the bigger picture. I very much appreciate my time at the tactical level and leading at the squadron, but I think as I hopefully get picked up for a higher rank and higher responsibilities, that I'll get some different, it will require me to think about and approach situations differently than I've done in the past. One of my mentors, Colonel Lass, used to tell me what got me here won't necessarily get me there. So I think that's going to be very much, this class kind of reminded me that I'm going to have to keep on working on my tool sets to make sure I'm going to be an effective leader. I also think that specifically, this is what my negative I had for the class is, like, you guys aren't talking about cyber enough in this class, especially with our great power competition with Russia and China. There's a lot of stuff that we need to be talking about the cyber domain. This was a little bit different because we were in an unclassed environment as a virtual class, and so we can't get into some of the classified information. But still, and I don't know how it's going to require time, but there needs to be some deliberate increase of both probably cyber and space domain discussions. And it sort of was like hand wave. It's like, yeah, there's some cyber stuff, and we have these cyber guys over here, the nerds, they do their thing, it's important, but let's go back to talking about moving carrier strike groups and where are our bases and that kind of stuff. It's still retaining to the traditional force structure model that we have. And so my recommendation is you're gonna have to find the right people to teach it and build it and talk about cyber edge space, because these are important domains we need to stay on top of. I was one of the token cyber guys in class, and one of the best, if you're tracking the news, there was a previous, hacking of one of the top meat industry or meat meat industry or meat packing companies, whatever it is, attributed to some nefarious hackers. And so as soon as that news broke out in our Slack channel, they're like, hey, so we're talking about this cyber stuff, Gabe. They better not be messing around with my meat. And I was like, okay, that's fine. So it was actually a real world kind of thing. But like, and so during the, we're all saying, just sharing comments, stuff like that. One of the other students gave me like, hey, Gabe, so I'm going to read it. He said, best quote, I thought it was the best quote ever. Gabe, make sure you punch those cyber adversaries in their meat supply. Yeah. Punch them in their meat supply. I'm not kidding. If I had some like beer or whatever, I would have spit out, laughed. I was laughing hard here in my house. So very shout out to all the classmates of Seminar 3. I look forward to hopefully reconnecting with you guys in the future to do what we need to do to defend our country. So overall good experiences, and looking forward to going back to work on Monday. We'll see exactly how much work they're going to give me. I already have some pre-planned leave, which kind of leads more into some of the other changes I'm having coming up here. Yeah, overall the class was really, really good. I was very thankful for the opportunity to attend. And then now it'll just add to my being a joint qualified officer and whatever opportunities that presents for me. So overall good experience at JCWS. So other piece I want to talk about this week was reflections on the recent AAPI Leaders Unmuted project. That was pretty cool. It culminated last week. We had Lieutenant Lee and Sergeant Hooper. We talked about their experiences and the pros and cons of leading local AAPI Heritage Month events, and we're going to keep on going from that. In that episode, I talked about like the good idea hit me right then and there, talking about like, hey, so why don't we crowdsource some of this stuff and try and get some of the best lessons learned and set the next team people who are going to be wanting to do this next year. Let's give them some a leg up and provide them with resources. So I've already started to do, I don't know what the official name of it's going to be, but right now AAPI Heritage Month event handbook or something to that effect. Going to figure out how to make like a generalized book that talks about like, here's some general, like as you plan it out over the year and how you approach the execution of one of these things. Here's some things you want to think about. Very similar to kind of like my approach. I didn't think about this until right now. Similar to my approach for my book, No Pressure. I want to talk about like I've run through that experience as commander, and here's some things you want to think about building up to the event, and then as you start to execute. So that similar kind of framework, I think, is what I want to do. But this is not going to be a solo project. I'm going to try and start soliciting for volunteers fairly soon. I think Sergeant Hooper was saying that they're doing their hot wash this week, and they're going to start working on their continuity binder next week, yeah. And so it's just a whole thing of, so imagine if we took all of those and combined them all into one really, really good product and made that as a free resource to everybody else. That'd be really, really good. So I'm looking forward to seeing what other good ideas that other people can contribute to that project. And so you'll start to see it if you're on certain social media pages or you're on my website, Content Elevation, exactly how you can become part of that project. So it's going to be really cool. Yeah, so the goal, now I'm going to start reading from my notes here. Actually, not yet. So the overall project of AAPI Leaders Unmuted, it was definitely something, I was pushed, and I said in one of the previous episodes, I was pushed by one of my mentors, Colonel Chank, to kind of get this organized and start to add like a different angle and a different leadership thing we needed to talk about to tackle subjects that some people may or may not have been comfortable talking about. So I took her advice and started building that out, and I learned a lot of stuff going on. I started to do a little bit more expanded online interview techniques and just using the background and multimedia kind of stuff and doing my own personal research. And so the project itself was awesome, and I'm very, very thankful that she pushed me, and I'm already going to catapult it from there into new things. I was very, very thankful for all of the brave voices that were willing to share their experiences. I think it's easy to talk about all the highlights kind of stuff, but when you talk about those friction points, those parts that kind of maybe make us uncomfortable, or it's on the side and we don't know how to positively address it, we shouldn't just walk away from those conversations. We need to have those. And so I feel like that was the reason why I did that project, and I'm very, very proud of the work that everybody was able to contribute, and just my little unique kind of perspective of adding to the overall AAPI Heritage Month. So for everybody who tuned in on my YouTube or in this podcast, thank you for listening in and just kind of hearing us share our stories, and I hope it inspires you to just remember, as a community of AAPIs, we are a very, very strong community, both within each other, and we need to be a strong community outside in the overall American society. So I'm looking forward to hopefully that my work can inspire you to just continue to do what you're doing, and be a good AAPI representative of the community, or break out of that shell, see if you can find your own unique path to give your unique contribution, because that's the beauty, I mentioned in one of the episodes, that's the beauty of our community. We get to contribute and our unique perspective of the world, and I think it makes the Air Force and our local communities that much better. So new project on the horizon. This is where it's kind of coming into, I had to make a decision as far as what I was going to do about how to take this platform, how to take Constant Elevation, and I've worked on this since I've been here, so like 2 years or something like that, right? And this is actually the 75th episode, and so I felt that was like a nice even number. It's not an even number, I get it, it's an odd number, but it's a significant number enough in order for me to potentially start to talk about some new challenges, or new goals, I should say. And I'm gonna have to force myself to get a little bit uncomfortable and make sure I'm pushing myself to become a better leader and follow through some of the projects and ideas that I've mentioned before. So that AAPI Heritage Event Handbook, again, that's the goal. Here's some important stuff that this is where JPME started to make sure that I started writing things down and make sure I can articulate them to my teammates. That goal is to forge leaders in the AAPI community who are driven to host successful, memorable, and influential AAPI Heritage Month events. So like I said before, it's gonna be a collaborative effort. If you wanna be part of that team, you can reach out to me, and then we're gonna organize ourselves over, we can do it over distance, and we know how to do online collaboration very well because of telework kind of things. And so my goal is to try and produce this handbook by the end of this calendar year. I think that'll give enough time by the time you hit January. There might be that prime, I believe, and some of these leads will probably tell you, that's gonna be that prime time where you need to start engaging wing leadership, engaging local community leaders to figure out how you can organize this thing. That way you can hit the ground running in May. That gives you about, 4 months to get stuff done. And so I think that's gonna be that's our goal, is to have that product finalized and ready by the end of this calendar year. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Another piece that I'm gonna, I started to sketch it out, and I'd say I did like a 30% sketch out. So I started to hear, based on these difficult conversations that people were willing to share their stories, I was also in different forums that, they're asking for mentors. I just raised my hand for stuff, and I've had several offline conversations with younger CGOs, and a lot of them they felt very refreshed being able to talk to me, maybe because I'm outside their chain or whatever it is. They've seen my bio, and so they kind of know my background. And so they were thankful to get some of that advice, no matter how early or mid-level they're happy to be on their career path. And so I wanted to, and all of our conversations were kept confidential. I don't put anybody's business in the streets, but I wondered how we can turn this into something different, to where I can have an unmuted conversation yet protect someone's identity, to make sure that I could give them, whoever they wanted, some direct advice. And so I can create a platform, we can have a conversation online, or a conversation like this. Like, it would be a Zoom conversation or whatever, but protect their identity. Think about when you watch criminal things and they black the person out, and then their face, and then they change their audio, something similar to that. But you can hear the context, you can hear the conversation and potentially the emotion going on in that conversation. I want to do something like that. So I'm going to call it unmuted mentoring, to where the goal is to provide an outlet for anonymous guests to have a mentorship conversation that protects their identity, provides real-time advice, and shareable content. So protects their identity, it talks about that. Real-time advice, I think having a conversation with this person, a long-form conversation, maybe however long that conversation needs to be, is important. Someone was asking me before, they're like, "Hey sir, I think you're just talking about ask me anything." I'm like, no, I don't want to ask me anything. I want to, because I don't have a context of that person, it just that's a very rapid fire. I'd say quantity. Ask me anythings are very quantity based. I want quality based. I want to have a conversation with this person where I can have more questions. They can ask me more questions. I can get more nuanced information and offer some advice on there. And you can't do that in a Instagram ask me anything format. I don't care about that. I want to have good quality conversations with people. So through my website, I'll probably set up that request page. It's all free 99, and then I'll create the podcast episode to where we can turn that conversation and potentially into a YouTube video, as far as you can hear the conversation, yet all of the data and information is going to be protected to where you don't know who it is, because that's not the important part. The important part is that person gets advice from a leader to make sure that their voices are being heard. I'm not a licensed psychologist or anything like that, or even a chaplain, and all those resources are obviously available and should be used if you want it. But maybe this would be a different kind of thing as long as you get help. And if I'm the random person that can help you because you feel like based on how I carry myself, if you heard me speak before, that you want to ask me some good mentorship advice, I'll ask if you're comfortable talking about it like that, and we'll have an unmuted conversation. And so I think I got to figure out more on that piece, and but I'm excited to see where I can go forward with that idea. Towards the end of May, I started doing more leadership. I get invited a couple times to go talk to either groups talking right before they're going to take squadron command, or just general leadership groups. And so one of the things, the questions they asked me, like, so if you heard about my leadership philosophies, alphabet aerobics, it was covered 2 weeks ago. And so I said that's different from my personal philosophy. So I found myself, I was like, hey, so I'm going to have to probably I need to spend some time and flesh out my personal philosophy. And I have it. I'd say I have like 50% of it done. And so the idea is I want to package it all together, and then I'm going to release an alphabet aerobics mixtape. Side A, it's going to be audio, like I'm going to read it, and then like potentially I'm going to write it all down, and then like type out the whole thing, and then I'll read it, kind of like an audiobook kind of thing, but I'm reading it. Side A is going to be my leadership philosophy. So this, accountability, blend, character, and don't be an asshole. And then side B is going to be, spoiler, it's going to be another ABCD. I'm not going to talk about it now, but it's going to be my personal philosophy. And so it's going to be, I call it the mixtape because if you're about that life, you know about mixtapes, having a side A, side B. Going to be an audio version. I'll figure out if I'll do a written version as well. And then potentially, because I'm me, I may actually release some limited edition legit mixtapes. Like you need to have a cassette player or a Walkman, like a regular person, and be able to listen to these things, and those may have additional content. It's just some ideas. I just like creating like unique stuff, and I think it'd be kind of fun to do that. And I have enough boomboxes and Walkman in order to create that content. And so Alphabet Aerobics mixtape, probably coming next year. It will be coming out next year once I get all of my thoughts and production ready. And it's going to be fun. It's just like a good way for me to stay on top of sharpening my ideas and how I want to be known and share my thoughts as a leader. And but I got to keep it real and keep it unique to me. So be on the lookout for that mixtape next year. Finally, this is where it comes to trying to understand what I want to do as a content creator. It seems kind of odd for me even to say stuff like that, right? Like, I do the podcast stuff. I have my own show, so it's very audio based. I started doing a little more YouTube things. Obviously, you have this video here, and then like just understanding that people like to take in content in different forms, and so if I can just create them, then that's cool. So but this is the kind of stuff I struggle with. It's not the struggle of finding resource and how to be successful. I'm not trying to be a social media influencer. I'm not trying to be I have an actual job is to be an officer, and so I just like doing these things on the side. So I like having the creative, my creative side and expressing myself in there. But I want to make sure that I'm staying true to myself. This is the whole thing. I don't want to come up with this manufactured product while all of a sudden I'm falling into the traditional marketing thing where I'm using social media to try and get the word out as many as possible and using all those tactics and techniques and playing to the algorithms and all that kind of stuff. I don't care about that. I'm going to use it because it is a way to do it, but I don't know what's the comfortable spot that I can stay true to myself, not feel icky when I'm putting out my content and not being true to myself, because I'm not going to try and show you this curated perfect version of Gabe Rock. It's me, like regular kind of things. I want it to be very organic and non-polished for a reason, and maybe I haven't found the right resource. So if you know marketing companies that understand that, like, I want to find a marketing plan that makes me not have to do all the marketing stuff. That's not even the right way to say it. There's things that I don't want to do because my understanding of the social media world and how to influence people, I want to make sure I'm doing it, always staying true to being from a positive and truthful thing, not just using words and clickbait and certain things to just kind of draw you in. I want you to draw you in because you actually believe in some of the content that I'm creating. So I just got to be smart about that. So that being said, this is going to be the last episode of season 3. I'm going to take a pause for a while. If you want to stay, I'll be recycling some of my older stuff from Constant Elevation just to do like Flashback Fridays or Throwback Thursdays, so you can just kind of catch up on some of our more popular episodes. I checked the stats earlier. We're sitting at over like 11,000 downloads. That's pretty cool. I don't know if that's good or bad. I care, don't care. It's a cool number. And I'm just happy that you guys are willing to listen, to take time out of your day, even if it's watching the YouTube video or going for a run, listening to my voice, whatever you're doing, or cleaning the house. This stuff is important to me because I want to be able to kind of contribute back to my fellow Air Force community that has raised me up to this point in my career, and I want to be able to continue to share those kind of ideas and thoughts and being a resource for you. So we'll see how that when I emerge later on this summer, it's going to be same constant elevation, but it's going to be maybe a little bit of different look because I like doing I do all the graphics as well for the entire website. So I may change up some of those things, but it's still going to be like the name of the episode, new goals, same grind. Going to be out here trying to be the best airman and paving the way for future leaders like yourselves to do the best they can do for the Air Force and the local community. So that being said, thank you all for watching and keeping up over the month of May and seeing me through this year. Again, look for season 3. I'll drop some announcements as stuff comes along. I'm looking forward to always, if you need anything, I'm still online. You can reach out to me. You can find all my contact information at constantelevation.co, or you can hit me on the global if you're active duty. And yeah, looking forward to continue to this whole life of constant elevation. Peace.